What if the person who has been holding you back your entire life is someone you see every single day? What if the enemy that has stolen your opportunities, silenced your voice, shrunk your dreams, has never once been someone else? What if it has always, always, been you? Stay with me. Because what I'm about to share with you is going to change the way you see yourself forever. Intro. There is a war happening right now. Not in a country far away. Not in a boardroom or a courtroom or a battlefield you can point to on a map. The war is happening inside you. On one side, there is the person you were created to be. Bold. Confident. Unshakable. The version of you that walks into a room and owns it. The version that speaks and means it. The version that faces difficulty and doesn't flinch. On the other side, there is doubt. Small, quiet, persistent doubt. And the devastating truth is this: most people never lose to their circumstances. They never lose to their competition. They never lose to bad luck or bad timing or the cruelty of the world. They lose to that small, quiet voice inside them that whispers, "You're not enough. Who do you think you are? What if you fail? What if they laugh?" They lose to themselves. But today, that changes. Because today we are going to dismantle doubt from the inside out. We are going to talk about what boldness actually is, where confidence really comes from, and why, once you truly stop doubting yourself, there is absolutely nothing and no one on this earth that can break you. Welcome. Let's get into it. The anatomy of self-doubt. Let me ask you something honest. When was the last time you talked yourself out of something before you even tried? When was the last time an opportunity appeared right in front of you, a chance to speak up, step forward, raise your hand, take the leap, and instead of moving toward it, you felt that familiar tightening in your chest and heard that familiar voice say, "Not yet. Not you. Not now." And you stepped back. And the moment passed. And you spent the next 3 days, maybe the next 3 years, wondering what would have happened if you hadn't. That is self-doubt in action. And it is one of the most expensive habits a human being can carry. Not expensive in money. Expensive in life. Expensive in the relationships never pursued. The businesses never launched. The words never spoken. The potential never unlocked. The version of yourself never fully met. Self-doubt is not humility. I want to make that distinction clearly, because many people confuse the two. Humility says, "I am willing to learn. I don't have all the answers. I am open to growth." Self-doubt says, "I am not capable. I am not worthy. I should not even try." Humility is a strength. Self-doubt is a thief. And it has been stealing from you long enough. Short story, The Elephant and the Rope. There is a story told about elephants in captivity that has always stopped me in my tracks. When an elephant is very young and small, trainers tie one of its legs to a wooden stake in the ground with a rope. The young elephant pulls and tugs and fights against the rope with everything it has. But it is too small. Too weak. The rope holds. The stake holds. And eventually, the elephant stops fighting. It learns, in that small and helpless season of its life, that the rope cannot be broken. Now here is the part that will shake you. That elephant grows. It grows into one of the most powerful creatures on the planet, capable of uprooting trees, of moving tons of weight, of shaking the ground beneath its feet. And yet, when the trainer ties that same thin rope around its leg and drives that same small stake into the ground, the elephant does not pull. Does not fight. Does not even try. Because it still believes what it learned when it was small. It believes the rope cannot be broken. But the rope can absolutely be broken now. It could not hold this elephant for a single second if the elephant simply decided to move. The only thing keeping that magnificent, powerful, unstoppable creature in place is a belief that is no longer true. Now tell me, what rope are you still standing next to? What stake was driven into the ground of your life when you were younger, smaller, more vulnerable, and you have never gone back to test it as the person you are now? Because I promise you, there are ropes in your life that cannot hold you anymore. The only question is whether you believe that. Where doubt comes from. To defeat something, you must understand it. You cannot fight an enemy you refuse to look at directly. So let's look at doubt, directly, honestly, without flinching. Where does self-doubt come from? For most people, it begins with a voice that was never theirs. Think about it. No child is born doubting themselves. Watch a toddler learning to walk. They fall, they get back up, they fall again, they laugh, they try again. There is no committee meeting in their mind weighing the pros and cons of attempting to stand. There is no inner critic cataloging their previous failures. There is just the pure, unfiltered instinct to try. Self-doubt is not natural. It is installed. It is installed by the teacher who said you weren't smart enough. By the parent who meant well but compared you to someone else one too many times. By the friend who laughed at the wrong moment. By the culture that told you your dreams were too big, your voice too loud, your ambition too much for someone like you. It is installed by rejection experienced without enough support to process it. By failure witnessed without anyone explaining that failure is not a verdict, it is a teacher. It is installed, line by line, year by year, until one day the voice of doubt sounds so familiar, so internal, so much like your own voice, that you forget it was ever anyone else's. But it was someone else's. Once. And you can give it back. Short story, the wrong name tag. A man once attended a professional conference, the kind where everyone wears a name tag on their lapel for the first day. Through a simple mix-up at the registration table, he was handed the wrong name tag. Not his name, someone else's entirely. He didn't notice immediately. He walked into the room, began networking, introduced himself to colleagues, and every time someone looked at his chest to read his name, they called him by the wrong name. And here is the fascinating part. After a full day of being called by someone else's name, of being treated, addressed, and referred to as this other person, he began, subtly and without realizing it, to inhabit that name. His posture shifted slightly. His manner of speaking adapted. He found himself responding to a personality that wasn't quite his. It wasn't until the end of the day, when he reached into his jacket pocket and found his real name tag, the one with his actual name on it, that he stopped and laughed. He had spent an entire day being someone else. Simply because he had accepted the wrong label without questioning it. How many of us are walking through life wearing the wrong name tag? How many labels were placed on us by someone else's hands? Not smart enough, not bold enough, not talented enough, too sensitive, too quiet, too much, and we accepted them without question. And how long have we been living inside an identity that was never ours to begin with? It is time to reach into your pocket. Your real name tag is there. Put it on. The cost of playing small. I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. The cost of playing small. We talk often about the risks of boldness. The possibility of failure. The chance of embarrassment. The danger of trying and not succeeding. These risks are real and I am not going to dismiss them. But we almost never talk about the cost of not trying. The cost of staying small. The cost of swallowing your voice one more time. The cost of letting another year pass without pursuing what you know you were put here to do. That cost is not zero. It is enormous. It is accumulating. And unlike the temporary pain of a bold attempt that doesn't work out, it never goes away. It compounds. It deepens. It becomes the quiet, persistent ache of a life half-lived. There is a word in Portuguese, saudade. It describes a deep, melancholic longing for something beautiful that has been lost or may never be experienced. Poets have called it the love that remains after everything else is gone. But there is a version of saudade that is even more painful than longing for the past. It is longing for the version of yourself you never gave permission to exist. Longing for the business you never started. The love you never pursued. The dream you folded up and placed in a drawer because doubt told you the world wasn't ready for it. Don't let that be your story. The world has enough people playing it safe. Enough people shrinking to fit into rooms that are too small for them. Enough people waiting for permission from an authority that was never coming. What the world is desperately short of, is people who have decided to be exactly and unapologetically who they are. Bold people. Confident people. Unbreakable people. People who looked at their doubt, and chose themselves anyway. Boldness is not the absence of fear. I need to correct a dangerous misconception before we go any further. Boldness is not the absence of fear. If you have been waiting to feel fearless before you act boldly, you will wait forever. Because fearlessness, in the complete sense, does not exist. Not in human beings. Not in the greatest leaders, the most celebrated artists, the most admired entrepreneurs in human history. Every single one of them was afraid. The difference is, they moved anyway. Boldness is not I am not afraid. Boldness is I am afraid, and I have decided that what I am moving toward matters more than the fear standing between me and it. There is a famous expression, courage is not the absence of fear. It is the judgment that something else is more important than the fear. And self-confidence, real, durable, unshakable self-confidence, is not the belief that you will never fail. It is the belief that you will survive whatever happens. That if you try and it doesn't work, you will learn. You will adjust. You will get back up. You will try again. Not because the pain isn't real, but because you have decided, at a fundamental, irreversible level, that you are not someone who stays down. That decision, I will not stay down, is the seed of true confidence. Plant it. Water it every single day. And watch what grows. Short story, The Boxer Who Smiled. There was once a young boxer preparing for the most important fight of his career. In the locker room before the fight, his trainer noticed that his hands were shaking. His breathing was rapid. His eyes were wide with something that looked very much like fear. The trainer sat down beside him and said nothing for a moment. Then he asked quietly, "Are you afraid?" The young boxer hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." The trainer smiled. Not a dismissive smile. A knowing one. He said, "Good. That means your body knows this matters. Now let me ask you something else. Are you going to let that fear walk into the ring, or are you going to walk in first and let the fear follow behind you?" The young boxer looked at him for a long moment. Then he stood up. Rolled his shoulders back. Took one long, slow breath. And he walked to that ring like he owned every inch of floor between the locker room and the ropes. He lost the fight that night. By a narrow margin, on points. But he came back 6 months later. And he won. Not because the fear disappeared. But because he learned that he was bigger than the fear. That he could carry it without being controlled by it. That his feet could move forward even when everything inside him was screaming to stay put. That is boldness. That is what we are building today. Closing of Part 1. We have covered the ground that needed to be covered first. We have looked at what self-doubt actually is, and where it comes from. We have seen, clearly, the cost of playing small. We have redefined boldness in a way that makes it accessible not just to the naturally fearless, but to every single person watching this right now. Including you. Especially you. Because here is what I know about you, simply by virtue of the fact that you are still watching. You are not someone who has given up. You are someone who is looking for the truth. Someone who knows, even if it's just a quiet knowing somewhere deep inside, that there is more. More capacity. More courage. More confidence. More life available to you than you have been living. And you are right. There is more. There is a version of you that has never been defeated. Not because life hasn't tried. Not because the storms didn't come, the disappointments didn't land, the people didn't disappoint, the doors didn't close. But because this version of you, the one we are building toward right now, made a decision so deep, so fundamental, so completely beyond negotiation, that nothing external ever had the power to reach it. That version is not a fantasy. That version is you, with the doubt removed. Let's build it. The moment everything shifts. There is a specific moment in the life of every confident person, and I want you to understand this clearly. There is a specific moment that everything changes. It is not a gradual drift. It is not a slow, barely noticeable sunrise. It is a moment. A decision. A line drawn in the sand of your own soul. It is the moment you look at your doubt, fully, directly, without blinking, and you say, "You no longer run this house." Not aggressively. Not desperately. But with the calm, settled, immovable authority of someone who has finally understood something that changes everything. Doubt is a tenant that never paid rent. And today is moving day. That moment, when it comes, reorganizes everything. The way you carry yourself. The way you enter a room. The way you speak. The way you make decisions. The way you respond to criticism, to setbacks, to the opinions of people who were never qualified to define you in the first place. Everything shifts. And it all begins with one decision. I choose myself. Not arrogantly. Not blindly. But completely. Short story, The Tree in the Storm. There is a particular kind of tree that grows in the mountains of Japan called the Hinoki cypress. What makes this tree remarkable is not its height, though it grows impressively tall. What makes it remarkable is what happens when the mountain storms come, and in those mountains, the storms are ferocious. Wind that bends everything in its path. Rain that pounds the earth for days. Conditions that uproot lesser trees and scatter them across the mountainside. The Hinoki cypress does not break. Not because the wind doesn't reach it. It does. The tree bends, dramatically, visibly, in ways that look almost dangerous from a distance. But it does not break. Because decades before that storm arrived, the tree was quietly, invisibly doing the most important work of its life, driving its roots deeper and wider and further into the earth than the eye could ever see. The storm doesn't find a rigid, brittle thing that shatters on contact. It finds something that bends, and then returns, slowly, completely, to standing exactly where it stood before. That is the person we are building today. Not someone who is never hit by the storm. But someone whose roots are so deep, in their own identity, their own values, their own unshakable sense of self, that the storm has nothing to take hold of. Bend? Perhaps. Break? Never. The 4 pillars of unbreakable confidence. Let me give you something practical now. Something you can build with. Because inspiration without instruction is just emotion, and emotion without direction fades by morning. These are the 4 pillars of unbreakable confidence. These are not theories. These are the structural foundations that every bold, confident, truly self-assured person, whether they know it or not, has built their inner life upon. Pillar 1, know who you are before the world tells you. The most dangerous moment in any person's life is the moment they allow the outside world to define their inside world. Because the outside world is loud. It is opinionated. It is often wrong. And it changes its mind constantly. The crowd that cheers you today will criticize you tomorrow. The people who call your idea brilliant on Monday will call it foolish by Friday if the wind shifts. Social media will celebrate you in the morning and cancel you by afternoon for the same qualities it praised. If your confidence is built on the approval of others, it has no foundation at all. It is a house built on the applause of a crowd that will eventually go home. Real confidence, unbreakable confidence, is built on self-knowledge. Knowing your values. Knowing what you stand for. Knowing what you will and will not compromise. Knowing your strengths with honesty and your weaknesses without shame. The ancient Greek aphorism carved into the temple of Apollo at Delphi said simply, "Know thyself." 2 words. Thousands of years old. Still the most revolutionary instruction ever given. Know yourself so completely, so honestly, so thoroughly, that when the world tries to hand you a version of yourself that doesn't match what you know to be true, you can hand it back. Calmly. Confidently. Without explanation. Pillar 2, fail forward, and fail loudly if you must. Here is a truth that the most confident people in the world understand that most people never learn. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the curriculum. Every failure contains information. Every rejection carries instruction. Every closed door is pointing you, sometimes forcefully, sometimes painfully, but always accurately, toward the door that is actually meant for you. But you can only receive that instruction if you are willing to keep moving after the fall. Let me tell you about James Dyson. Before he built the vacuum cleaner that made him a billionaire and changed an entire industry, James Dyson built 5,127 prototypes that didn't work. 5,127 failures. In an interview, he was asked how he kept going. How he maintained confidence through more than 5,000 attempts that produced nothing. He said something that I have never forgotten. He said, "I wasn't failing. I was eliminating. Every prototype that didn't work told me something the next one needed to know." He wasn't counting failures. He was collecting information. That is the mindset of the bold. That is the framework of the unbreakable. Not "I failed again. But I just learned something that gets me one step closer." Shift the frame. Change the story. And watch how differently you move through the world. Pillar 3, silence the wrong voices, and amplify the right ones. Not every voice deserves a seat at the table of your mind. This sounds obvious. But the way most people live their lives, absorbing every opinion, carrying every criticism, allowing every passing comment to take up permanent residence in their internal dialogue, suggests that most of us have never actually applied this principle. There is a practice I want to give you. Simple but transformative. Every voice that speaks into your life, every opinion, every piece of feedback, every critical remark, before you absorb it, ask 2 questions. Who is this person? And have they done what they are criticizing me for attempting? If the answer to the second question is no, their opinion about your attempt is not data. It is noise. The person who has never started a business does not get to define your entrepreneurial capacity. The person who has never stood up in front of a crowd does not get to measure your courage. The person who has never loved boldly does not get to set the standard for your heart. Take counsel from the people in the arena. Everyone else, wish them well, and keep moving. Theodore Roosevelt said it better than I ever could. He said, "It is not the critic who counts. Not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood." Get in the arena. And stop taking directions from the people in the stands. Pillar 4, act before you are ready. This is the one that separates the talkers from the doers. The dreamers from the builders. The people who have potential, and the people who do something with it. Confidence is not a prerequisite for bold action. It is a result of it. Read that again. Confidence is not something you acquire and then use. It is something you build by doing the thing before you feel ready to do it. Every time you act in spite of fear, confidence grows. Every time you speak when you wanted to stay silent, confidence grows. Every time you try something new and survive the discomfort, confidence grows. It compounds. Slowly at first. Then unstoppably. Like bamboo building roots underground for years before shooting 90 feet into the sky in a single season, your confidence may seem invisible during the building phase. But it is growing. Every act of courage, however small, however private, however unwitnessed, is adding to the foundation. Act before you are ready. That is not recklessness. That is the most honest definition of boldness that has ever existed. Short story, The Woman Who Raised Her Hand. There was a woman named Vivian who worked in a large corporation for 9 years. For 9 years, she sat in meetings where ideas were discussed, strategies were debated, directions were chosen. And for 9 years, Vivian had thoughts, good thoughts, sharp thoughts, thoughts that she was privately convinced would change the direction of the conversation. And for 9 years, she kept those thoughts inside. Because what if they were wrong? What if people looked at her strangely? What if she misunderstood the question? What if? One Tuesday morning, an ordinary Tuesday, nothing special about it, something in Vivian shifted. She doesn't fully know why. She hadn't read a book that weekend that changed her life. She hadn't attended a seminar or had a dramatic epiphany. She had simply woken up that morning and, in the quiet before the noise began, asked herself a question she had never asked before. What is the actual worst thing that happens if I speak? She ran through the scenarios. People disagree, she survives. People don't respond well, she survives. She misspeak, she survives. Her idea isn't chosen, she survives. She survives every single worst-case scenario. And the best case? The best case is that her idea is exactly what the room needed. That her voice changes the direction. That someone walks out of that meeting thinking, who is she? I need to know her better. That Tuesday morning, Vivian raised her hand in the meeting. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. She noticed it. She kept talking anyway. The room listened. Her idea was not only accepted, it became the foundation of a project that ran for the next 2 years and was cited by leadership as one of the most successful initiatives of the decade. 9 years of silence, ended by one raised hand. One decision to act before she felt ready. That is what boldness costs. One moment of discomfort. That is what boldness returns. Everything. Nobody can break what is built from the inside. I want to come back to the title of this script now. Because I want to explain it, not as a motivational slogan, but as a literal truth. Nobody can break you once you stop doubting yourself. Here is why this is not just inspiration. Here is why this is fact. When your confidence is external, built on other people's approval, on circumstances going your way, on your track record of successes, it has a vulnerability point. It can be reached. It can be damaged. Because the things it is built on can be taken away. Take away the approval, the confidence crumbles. Change the circumstances, the confidence wavers. Introduce a significant failure, the confidence collapses. But when your confidence is internal, built on self-knowledge, on your relationship with your own values, on the unshakable conviction that you will survive and grow through whatever comes, it has no vulnerability point that the outside world can reach. You can criticize me, but you cannot change what I know about myself. You can reject me, but you cannot alter my sense of my own worth. You can close a door on me, but you cannot convince me there are no more doors. This is not arrogance. Arrogance says, I am better than you. Confidence says, I am enough, and so, by the way, are you. There is a profound difference. Arrogance is fragile. It needs constant feeding. It collapses the moment someone bigger walks in the room. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to compete. It simply is. It walks into a room without needing to own it. It speaks without needing to dominate. It listens without feeling threatened. It fails without feeling destroyed. Because it knows something that no external circumstance can unknow. I am not what happens to me. I am how I choose to respond to what happens to me. And that choice, that irreversible, deeply personal, entirely yours choice, is the one thing in this life that no person, no circumstance, no failure, no rejection, no storm can ever take from you. Short story, The Diamond Under Pressure. A young student once asked a gemologist, someone who studies and works with precious stones, why diamonds are so valuable. The gemologist picked up a rough diamond, uncut, unpolished, looking nothing like the brilliant stones people wear in rings and necklaces. She held it up to the light and said, "This stone was made under more pressure than most things on earth can survive. Extreme heat. Extreme force. Conditions that would destroy almost any other material. But carbon, ordinary carbon, the same stuff found in pencils and charcoal, carbon, under the right pressure, over the right time, does not get destroyed. It transforms. It becomes the hardest naturally occurring substance on Earth. It becomes something that, once formed, nothing can scratch except another diamond. The pressure didn't break it. The pressure made it what it is." The student sat quietly for a moment. Then asked, "So the pressure was necessary?" The gemologist smiled. "The pressure was the point. Every difficulty you have faced, every rejection, every failure, every season of doubt and darkness and wondering if you were going to make it through, was the pressure. And you are still here. Which means you are not coal anymore. You are a diamond in the making. And diamonds, once formed, cannot be broken by ordinary force. Neither can you." The daily practice. Here are 3 things to practice every single day. 1. Speak the truth, even when your voice shakes. Every time you say what you actually mean, in a meeting, in a relationship, in any situation where silence would have been easier, you deposit something into your confidence account. Do it daily. The dividends are extraordinary. 2. Do one thing every day that the doubting version of you would not do. It doesn't have to be enormous. It can be small. Introduce yourself to a stranger. Send the email you've been drafting for 3 weeks. Sign up for the class. Apply for the position. Ask for what you need. One act of boldness, daily, is 365 deposits into the account of the person you are becoming. 3. Protect your inner dialogue with your life. The conversation you have with yourself is the most important conversation happening in your world. More important than any meeting, any relationship, any external feedback. If that conversation is contaminated with doubt, criticism, and self-attack, everything built on top of it is unstable. Guard it. Tend it. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love and believe in completely. Because you deserve that. Not someday. Now. Closing, the invitation to be unbreakable. We have come a long way together in this conversation. From the elephant still standing next to a rope that can no longer hold it, to the tree in the storm with roots deeper than the wind can reach, to Vivian's raised hand, to the diamond formed under pressure. Every story, every principle, every word, has been pointing toward the same truth. You are more than your doubt has told you. You are more capable than your fear has allowed you to demonstrate. You are more resilient than your worst season has led you to believe. And once you truly, completely, irreversibly stop doubting yourself, once you build your confidence on the inside instead of the outside, on who you are instead of what others think, on the unshakable conviction that you will survive and grow through whatever comes, nobody can break you. Not the critic. Not the rejection. Not the failure. Not the person who underestimated you. Not the circumstance that tried to define you. Not the voice from the past that told you that you were too small, too much, too little, not enough. None of it. Because you will have become the one thing none of those forces know how to defeat. Someone who has chosen themselves. Completely. Finally. For good. Go be bold. Go be confident. Go be the unbreakable, unapologetic, fully alive version of yourself that this world has been waiting for.